A jail is not the only thing that the ADX Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado is. It is also a fortress of isolation, a monument to human ingenuity in containment, and a sobering reminder of the darkest corners of human behavior. Not only does its nickname, the Alcatraz of the Rockies, merely scrape the surface of its notoriety, but it is also located amid the Rocky Mountains, which are known for their rough topography. The purpose of this location is not to provide rehabilitation. Rather, it is to erase an institution that is responsible for the disappearance of the most dangerous people in the world, not in physical form, but in spirit. One of the most impressive examples of psychological warfare, the design of the prison. With a thin slit of a window that allows no view of the outside world, just a sliver of sky, each cell is purposefully oriented to prevent convicts from knowing their exact position. Each cell is a concrete tomb that measures barely 7 feet by 12 feet. The people who designed this institution were aware of the fact that in order to break a man's will, it is necessary to first break his connection to the outside world. The doors are made of steel, the walls are sturdy, and the stillness is so loud that it is deafening. The most fundamental human amenities are denied to inmates, including the ability to eat together, participate in group activities, and feel a sense of time and location. They are only allowed to spend 23 hours per day in solitary confinement, and they are only allowed 1 hour of recreation in a small concrete yard that is enclosed and feels more like a cage than a respite yard. ADX Supermax is home to a population of inmates who are not your typical criminals. They are the masterminds of terror, the architects of disorder, and the leaders of empires of bloodshed that have been created on the foundation of violence. DISCOVERIEZ Moussaoui, the so-called 20th hijacker of the 9/11 attacks, is one of the notorious people who dwell there. His hopes of becoming a martyr were supplanted with the crushing monotony of solitary confinement. On the other hand, there is Joe Sarnath, the younger brother who was responsible for the explosion at the Boston Marathon. His youthful appearance conceals the horror that he unveiled. In addition to being spies, cartel leaders, and people who traffic in people, these individuals are the reason that ADX Supermax still exists. Those individuals who have demonstrated that they are too dangerous, too cunning, or too influential to be kept anywhere else are the ones who are housed in this prison. But the scientific sophistication of ADX Supermax is what genuinely differentiates it from other products. Each and every movement is monitored by motion detectors, pressure sensors, and cameras that are strategically placed around the facility. Because the doors are controlled remotely, it is impossible for any inmate to ever take a guard by surprise within the facility. Armed officers and attack dogs patrol the perimeter, and the sound of their barking can be heard reverberating through the chilly mountain air there. There are technologies in place to detect any attempt at chemical sabotage, and even the air itself is monitored for any potential threats. Not only is this a prison, but it is also a mechanism that is meant to break down the will of people who are incarcerated within its walls. Nevertheless, despite the fact that it is secure, ADX Supermax is not devoid of conflicts of opinion. It has been argued by human rights organizations that prolonged solitary confinement is equivalent to psychological torture, and they have condemned the conditions as being inhumane. There have been reports of inmates experiencing hallucinations, paranoia, and a severe sense of hopelessness. There have even been instances of people attempting to end their own lives, expressing a preference for death over the unending boredom of their existence. On the other hand, those who advocate for the prison contend that these countermeasures are essential. The persons in question are not your typical criminals. Rather, they are people who have demonstrated a potential for damage that is beyond conception. They believe that granting them any degree of freedom would be tantamount to exposing themselves to unthinkable horrors. Regarding this incarceration, what are my thoughts? A place where the worst of mankind is contained in order to make it easier for the rest of us to sleep at night is a necessary evil. It is a place where the worst of humanity is contained. However, it is also a location that compels us to address challenging concerns regarding the nature of justice, the effectiveness of punishment, and the boundaries of human endurance. Does it seem sense to put anyone to such restrictions, regardless of the crimes they have committed? Or is this the price that we have to pay in order to be safe in a world that is becoming increasingly dangerous? Located deep within the Rocky Mountains, the ADX Supermax does not provide any answers. Rather, it merely stores the questions in a secure location made of concrete and steel walls. Therefore, the jail continues to stand as a monument to the extremes of human behavior, both in the individuals who are incarcerated there and in the society that constructed it. It is a place where time seems to slow down to a crawl, where the outside world seems like a distant memory, and where the line between justice and cruelty is hazy. We are reminded of the darkness that resides within each and every one of us, as well as the lengths to which we are willing to go in order to keep that darkness at bay. Not only does ADX Supermax have towering walls and high-tech security systems, but the story of the facility does not end there. It permeates the lives of those who live there, the guards who are responsible for its protection, and the civilization that was responsible for its creation. Isolation, resiliency, and the undying spirit of the human race are all themes that are explored in this narrative, even in the face of inconceivable imprisonment. The inmates of ADX Supermax are subjected to a never-ending cycle of monotony and contemplation throughout their time there. There is only a sliver of light that comes in through the small window slot, and the only sounds that can be heard are the clang of the steel doors as meals are brought in. The days seem to blend together. In order to prevent the food from coming into direct touch with the security personnel, it is slid through a slot in the door, which is typically chilly and unappetizing. Every day, the captives are forced to eat, sleep, and live by themselves. Many people find that the psychological toll, rather than the physical confinement, is the difficulty of the situation. Because it is deprived of excitement, the mind starts to shift inward, bringing up memories, regrets, and worries among other things. The practice of religion provides some prisoners with a sense of comfort, and they pray earnestly to a higher force for salvation or deliverance. Despite the fact that the selection is restricted and extensively regulated, some people are able to lose themselves in reading. A select number, such as Theodore Kaczynski, the notorious Unabomber, channel their intelligence into writing manifestos or letters, making an effort to keep a link to the outside world, even if it is only through the written word. However, not every prisoner devolves to hopelessness. In a system that is designed to rid them of their humanity, some people evolve and find ways to assert their humanity. These individuals engage in strenuous physical activity, use their bodies as a tool of rebellion against the oppressive weight of their surroundings. They create works of art by drawing on bits of paper that they can find, or they construct music in their heads by humming melodies that reverberate quietly within their cells, as a means of reminding themselves and possibly their captors that they are more than the sum of their crimes. These seemingly insignificant acts of creativity become acts of defiance. Working at ADX Supermax presents a one-of-a-kind task for the security personnel. Inmates are not seen as individuals, but rather as potential dangers, and they are educated to maintain a professional distance between themselves and the inmates. However, they are also examples of human beings, and the burden of duty that they bear is enormous. They are required to maintain a state of constant vigilance, as they are aware that even the smallest breach in security might easily result in devastating outcomes. The remote location of the jail contributes to the feeling of isolation, as many of the guards of the facility live in neighboring towns where the facility's shadow is a significant presence. They come together to establish communities that are close-knit and are held together by a common understanding of the work that they accomplish. There is, however, an understanding of the moral complexities that are associated with their function even among them. They are not just responsible for upholding the law. They are also the guardians of a system that, according to many people, violates the most fundamental principles of human rights. Within the confines of a DX supermax, the prison holds a distinguished position in the collective consciousness of the general public, as a place where society sends people it considers to be beyond redemption. It is a representation of the most severe form of punishment. On the other hand, it brings up some unsettling considerations regarding the philosophy of justice and the morality of solitary incarceration for extended periods of time. Advocates for prison reform argue that the conditions that DX detainees are subjected to constitute cruel and unusual punishment. They point to the high rates of mental illness that are prevalent among DX offenders. They advocate for substitutions that put more of an emphasis on rehabilitation as opposed to vengeance. Proponents of the prison, on the other hand, believe that there is no other option available for certain individuals outside of the prison. These are individuals who have shown a capacity for violence and deception, which makes them a threat even among the general population of those who are incarcerated. However, they believe that if they were to be housed someplace else, it would be a risk of further injury. It is quite doubtful that the discussion around DX supermax will be addressed anytime soon. There are wider social problems about crime, punishment, and the limitations of human endurance, and this situation is a microcosm of those questions. However, the most unsettling part of the prison is not its security measures or its notorious inmates, rather. It is the manner in which it compels us to confront our own humanity. Both the convicts and the people who are in charge of them forced to struggle with the question of what it means to be human in a setting that is intended to dehumanize them. Because of the constant isolation they are subjected to, the convicts are having a difficult time maintaining their sense of identity. In a system that is based on control, it is difficult for the guards to keep their sympathy in check. However, for society as a whole, it serves as a reminder of the thin line that separates justice and cruelty, as well as the decisions that we make in the name of safety. DX supermax continues to serve as a striking reminder of the extremes of human conduct, even as the sun sets over the Rocky Mountains, creating lengthy shadows across the concrete walls of the jail. Despite the fact that it is a location that contains the worst of humanity, it is also a place that reflects the greatest of our inventiveness and resolve. While it is true that it is a prison, it is also a mirror one that reflects back to us who we are and who we have the potential to become. Not only do we see ourselves in that reflection, but we also see not only the other inmates.